I originally came to Necedah National Wildlife Refuge, I was very excited to work, but also very raw. One of my tasks was to create a brochure for berry picking on the refuge. I didn't see the value of brochures, but that all changed when I went out on the Visitor Center trails without the Visitor Center Trails brochure.
Hey, Kristen, I think I'm gonna go walk the...
Okay, did you want one of our maps?
No, I think I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Alright, enjoy your walk.
Thanks. I think I went a little bit off the trail. Yeah, I don't know exactly where I am, but yeah, it's pretty dark out. Maybe in hindsight, I should have used the trail brochure that Kristen offered me, but that's in the past. So yeah, if I just think positive, I think I can get out of this one. Oh wait, I think I see something. Oh, ooh, okay, here we go. Oh wait, what is that? Is that a door handle? What? Let's open it. Okay. Ah. Oh, wait a second. Yeah. Well, it looks like I didn't even leave the visitor center, but I think I'm gonna go get that trail brochure, and then I'll go walk the trail again and see how that goes.
The trail brochure made by Kristen not only gave me a map of the trails, but it also told me about places to see wildlife on the trail, gave me the password to the trail on the boardwalk, and told me the place I could see the mythical yellow dragon of Necedah. When I came back to the visitor center, Kristen gave me awesome tips on how to make a great brochure, and when I finally made the berry brochure, it provided great information on berry picking in the refuge, and using it myself, I found these gigantic blueberries. Another thing that I do at the refuge is pick invasive common mullein and fill brochure boxes. But when I first started off, I wasn't very good at doing either of those.
Okay, how do I do this? Let's see. Gosh. Let me think. Here we go. Yes. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna pick this mullein. Did they say pick or pick or? I don't know. Okay. So ready? Here we go. Yeah, take that. Yeah, that's right. Here we go. Woo! Yeah. Okay. I think I did my job here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually terrible at doing those things. But luckily, my fellow visitor services intern, Mitch, trained me on how to pick mullein and fill brochure boxes.
You must use all your senses to pull mullein.
Yes. Oh.
With Mitch's training, I excelled, especially at pulling mullein.
Whoa. Ooh.
I thought my training was over, but Mitch had one thing left for me.
Your final task will be to defeat monster mullein.
Yes.
I had one thing left to do: defeat the monster mullein that terrorized native species. After weeks of training, I went out to destroy monster mullein. Finally, as a visitor services intern, my job is to inform the public about the refuge mission and do environmental education programs. The test run for my first program showed exactly how good I was at giving programs.
Today I'm going to be doing a program on what is it? Doing a program on butterflies.
After that disastrous test run, I went to the refuge's ranger, Kara, to get advice on giving programs. And she showed me that good programs require good organization, proper planning, and good notes. and with her help, my first program was a success. Before I started the Career Discovery Internship Program, I thought that the most important jobs on refuges were undoubtedly the jobs that had to do directly with research and management of wildlife and habitat. The idea I had of my visitor services job at Necedah National Wildlife Refuge would be all about answering the questions of the visitors, making everything look good to the public, and giving them information about the refuge. At the beginning of the summer, my mentor, Matt Connor, gave me a book called Beyond Ecophobia by David Sobel, which talks about teaching kids to love nature before teaching them to save it. This book would start my change in perception of visitor services and environmental education. In my first week at the refuge, I did do a lot of the things that I expected to do. I filled brochure boxes so visitors could use brochures for trails. I worked front desk and answered the visitors' questions, and I cleaned windows and displays to make the visitor center look good. My next few weeks on the refuge were a little bit different. I shadowed many different programs for kids and adults given by the refuge's ranger, Kara, and by my fellow visitor services intern, Kristen. Watching the programs coupled with reading and discussing Sobel's book made me realize many things. I realized that the reason that we inform the public through programs is not just to give them interesting information, but to give them to appreciate what is on the refuge and eventually get them closer to becoming conservationists. I started to discover that visitor services jobs are not ends in and of themselves, but means to connect visitors to the refuge and to what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does to help protect and manage habitat and wildlife. I realized that everything we do in visitor services, from cleaning displays to giving programs, has the purpose of giving the visitors an enjoyable, educational experience that will get them to appreciate the refuge at a small scale and the environment at a large scale. I then understood why Matt gave me the book, to make me realize that environmental education is not only about informing the public, but also changing perspectives and teaching people to appreciate and love nature so they are willing to protect it. After weeks of watching programs, it was time for me to do what I now feel is the most important part of my job, environmental education. I gave a program at a nearby summer school, but noticed that a lot of the kids were disinterested and bored. After the program, I talked to Kara about ways to improve my program. We talked and I realized that my program was too much lecture and a lot of information at once. After thinking about the goals of environmental education, I realized that even if I don't give all the information I know on something, or if I can't answer a question a person watching the program has, I have still succeeded if I am making them more interested in what I am talking about. I made my second program, an animal tracks program, more geared toward kids, and watching the kids go from not knowing what an animal track is to being excited when I took them looking for tracks was one of the best parts of my summer. This summer taught me that visitor services is more than just answering questions or keeping a building clean. It's about connecting the public to what we do in a fashion that will convince them to support our mission. As in nature, all jobs in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are interconnected and play vital roles to keep the system going, and visitor services is no exception.